Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. We got a lot to talk about tonight, or today, I guess I should say. It's all a blur as far as where we actually are. I'm not even sure what day it is at this point. The
It ends in
playoff,
Y.
the lack of sleep from the playoffs is definitely getting to me at this point. Before we get into today's topics, let me just give a quick reminder. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. We're pushing towards 25,000 subscribers. We'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications as well. And then over on Apple Podcasts, if you wouldn't mind giving us that 5-star rating and review, you can actually do both things. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel and over on the podcast feed as well. Even if you listen on Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts, follow us there. Two great ways to help out our show.
Let me throw this out there, Trevor, just
yes.
so people know. We're up to 181 individual ratings on Apple reviews. It's just the easiest one to see. I'd love to see that get to like 200 here before the month is out. So if you watch or listen, if you guys would jump in, if you want to just do a rating, that's fine. But if you can leave a review too, that really helps. It helps push us up. It helps more people find the show. And it'll be there. There's a lot of you have said very, very kind things here, which is, the most often comment is it's unbelievable that a Lakers guy and a Celtics guy like make this enjoyable.
That we coexist somehow.
Yeah, it's just a lot of fun with that. So we appreciate all the kind ratings that everyone's left in the comments on YouTube as well. And let's push those up to 200 ratings and 25,000 subscribers. Let's go.
Absolutely.
And go put on the notification so you know when we go live for Front Office Fridays. We missed last week because of travel, and then I had no internet for most of 2 days, Thursday and Friday. As they're finally here in Florida burying cables, which seems like a thing you would have done in a hurricane state years ago, but they're doing it. But yeah, so that was a big mess. But we'll be back this Friday, live show for sure with everybody.
That's right.
So just make sure you hit us up, one way or another, and do us a solid and subscribe and leave a rating and review.
Yeah, we sure would appreciate it. Great way to remove that label of being the best kept secret out there. We would love to see that happen. All right, let's just jump right into the playoffs. A lot going on. Obviously, I guess let's start here. Miami takes a 3-1 series lead over the Knicks. Just to be blunt, is that series over?
Yeah, I think so. And the Knicks might win Game 5. They're home. I would imagine you're going to get their most desperate effort. So maybe they win. I think sometimes too, when teams are up 3-1 going on the road, there's almost a little bit of a comfort level you have of like, hey, we still have the cushion, right? Where we have Game 6 at home, we'd still have a game in hand. I'm on the other team, so that maybe Miami's not the kind of team that generally lets off the gas very much. So, but we'll see. But yeah, I don't know if it's over in 5. But I think the series is over for sure.
To your point, then the Knicks are a 3.5-point favorite, but that's actually not that much given the circumstance. No. Their backs are against the wall and all of that. Emmanuel quickly, we'll see if he is available to play. The Miami just continues to astound. Like they're the 8th seed. Like they lost their first play-in game. Right, and then they had to win their next one in order to get in, and here they are, and yet, they could be on their way to the Eastern Conference Finals here.
Yeah.
This is an incredible run for the Miami Heat.
Yeah, it's a little bit of semantics because of the timing of the games, but they could be the first team in the conference finals to clinch a spot in the conference finals.
How crazy would that be?
Right, because they play slightly before Lakers Warriors, right? They're in the early window, so yeah, man, it really is one of those things where it's like how, and then you watch and they're super adaptable. They're playing a lot of different ways, even within games, right? And I need the tell-all story on why Cleveland let Kevin Love go. Like, what?
Right?
Why
30 for 30.
Right? Yeah, like this guy is playing great. And if I have to watch one more, 90-foot bomb outlet pass from Kevin Love to Jimmy Butler on a fly route, like I don't even get it. Right? Those guys should immediately, when the season ends, report to Dolphins training camp. At this point, it feels like they're just lighting guys up. So it's just. Man, it has been really something with the way they're playing, and shorthanded too. Like they don't have Tyler Hero, who was one of their best players throughout the course of the regular season, or at least best offensive
Yeah.
players. So just unbelievable. Eric Spoelstra, man, and that whole deal. I'm not big on the whole Heat culture stuff. Like I think that's propaganda more than anything. But there's got to be something there if you're pulling this off. But then I do question, like, where was it all season long then?
Yeah.
Like, does it just go in storage and you break it out in late April? Like, what are we doing here? But man, what a run for them so far.
Oh, could you imagine Kevin Love throwing passes to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle? We need to make this happen
Right?
somehow, right?
Like basketball when they did
Right.
the cross sport, like interleague play, and then they're like inter sport play. It was like football players taking out golfers and stuff.
Full contact golf. I think that was a commercial back in the day. Full contact golf. Yeah,
I love that
we need to see
movie.
that.
I absolutely love that movie. And I don't think like enough people have seen it.
I
Like
probably haven't seen
it's
it's
great.
been at least 20 years since I've seen it.
We used to
It's
watch it every year, but it's been a while since I've seen it now for sure.
all right, let's jump over to the Celtics. Keith, the Celtics going into tonight's game are a 7.5 point favorite against the 76ers. Are you comfortable with that line coming off the overtime game 4, the series tied to 2 apiece?
I am. I think there's a chance Boston runs away with this one tonight. I think you're going to really see them locked in. That they really played great defensively down the stretch of game 4 after not playing so great in about the first 35-ish minutes. They really kind of locked in down the stretch and really played well. And they couple poorly executed plays cost them in the overtime, and that's why they didn't win. But it's this only matters to an extent, right? They are 2-2 in the series. That's what matters, right? None of how you got here really matters. But on the silver lining is it took 2 all-time James Harden performances and 2 James Harden buzzer beaters just to get the series tied up. So I think if they don't mess around, they play the way they can. I think the home crowd will lift them. I think there's a chance this one ends up a blowout, and then we'll kind of see where game 6 goes. Because Philly, this is tough right now. You're playing every other day with travel this time. So now you had to travel, not very far. I mean, Philadelphia to Boston's a pretty short trip, but you did have to travel. So we'll see how it comes together. But nothing would surprise me at this point with this Celtics team. They're all over the place, and I don't know what to expect other than I'll probably be frustrated at points later on this evening.
I was doing a radio show yesterday. This was a radio hit in Memphis, and we were talking NBA in general, and the question was posed: has Joe Mazzulla's lack of experience been shown in the postseason here, particularly in Game 4? Was that an issue? And I thought that there were some areas where that may have popped up, though I don't credit that as being the entire reason why the series is tied at 2 apiece. You, having watched the Celtics all season long on a game in, game out basis, how do you approach that question?
Yeah, it's really tough. I think I'm gonna answer with not answering it because I'm gonna answer slightly all of my concerns with them is their lack of execution down the stretch of these games is absolutely confounding to me, and I don't get how we're still here, this deep into this core group's playoff runs. I mean, they have been in the conference finals or the minimum the playoffs. They had the 1 year where they were bounced early, and then they had the 1 year where they were bounced in the second round. But every other year, it's at least the conference finals, the NBA finals, and they do silly, stupid stuff at the end of games. They play slow. They hold the ball. They let defenses load up on them. Sometimes they go into the equivalent of prevent offense with like 6 minutes to go in a 10-point lead,
Oh,
and I don't get it, right? Like
that's one of my biggest NBA pet
I hate
peeves.
it. I
Drives
hate
me
it so
crazy.
much. Yeah. So, and I think the timeout stuff though is I'm fine with going no timeout if you go. The minute it bogs down, you got to call the timeout.
Yes.
Call the timeout, reset, let the guys, get in there. I think not just they're too good defensively too to not be sound on final plays like that one against Harden where Jaylen Brown doubled off
Doubled Embiid, yeah.
side corner. You don't double off the strong side corner. You don't double off the arc when a 3 can beat you and a 2 can't. It was just a lot of confounding stuff where it's like these guys are better than this, they're smarter than this. I know they are, and you just end up in a spot where it just gets super messy. So I know I didn't really answer your question directly there, but those are just kind of all the things where I just I don't really have an answer other than this is who they are now, I guess. Like this is I don't know why I feel like it's on me now for expecting it to change. I think one game they'll close and execute and look great, and then the next game they won't.
As far as not calling a timeout, like I get it if let's say you're in semi-transition and your opponent is getting back and they're in a scramble and there's mismatches on the floor just naturally because they're in a scramble coming back. That's where it's like, okay, well, you already got what you would look to get if you called timeout in most cases anyway, which is to get an advantageous switch. If that's already in existence, then I get why bother having to inbound the basketball unless you have some fantastic play that you really want to go to close out the game. But you're right. If you get into your possession and it doesn't look like anything's happening, then yeah, you call a timeout and you draw up something and you attack it a different way. That was a little bit surprising to see the Celtics do. And then, of course, Marcus Smart taking that shot after the buzzer. That wasn't Smart's fault. Just the play came together a little bit late. Nonetheless, it's going to be something to keep an eye on here throughout the postseason. And I guess the other side of this too, though, the Philly side. Is Doc Rivers coaching for his job in this series?
I think so. I feel like I don't know how many more years you can go and not get to at least a conference finals. And I feel like there's a sense of like, hey, it's here for us. Like, yeah, we ran into Boston. We ended up on the more chalk side of the bracket, I guess. So here we are, but I think there's probably some frustration level. And this goes back to, right, what do we always say? You can't change all the players. So you tend to change the coach. And I kind of wonder, like, where's James Harden at? Like, is he, I just, there's something to this Houston stuff because it just won't go away. You're hearing it from too many different places now. Like, there's at least something there. He's at least going to consider that. Now, yeah, I mean, you could be of two minds too. Let's say they make and win the title, right? They make the finals and win the title. You could say, well, he could never leave now, or you could say, hey, I did it, right? I got you
Kawhi Leonard.
Good luck and see you later. Like that, they could go that way too. I don't know where it's going to go, but yeah, it's one of those things where I think when you look at it, Boston has played better cumulatively throughout the course of the series. But it's 2-2. And again, that's all that really matters, right? It doesn't matter how you got here. It's kind of like when people say like, oh, we outscored them by 25 points over the course of the series. Yeah, and you lost. Like what? I don't care. That you won one game by 40. Like that doesn't really matter, right? You lost the other game. So this is on the Celtics to get this figured out, and it's not to go back and pick on Giannis and his whole thoughts, but this is a failure. If Boston doesn't win this series, they don't get back to the NBA Finals with the way everything is laid out for them. I think the whole season has been it was a failure of a season. You didn't accomplish the bare minimum goal of getting back to the finals.
Yeah, that's going to be again the storyline around the final here. Potentially 3 games of this series. We'll see if it goes 7, if it goes 6. We'll see what happens here. But tied at 2 apiece. Not where we expected to be in that one, but we'll see again how this all plays out. And if the Celtics do indeed cover that, I mean, that's a heavy favorite for the postseason in a series that's tied 2-2 to be a 7.5 point favorite. Golden State and the Lakers. I've talked a ton on this.
I imagine
the Lonnie Walker game. What an inspirational story that is.
When does your Lonnie Walker jersey get delivered?
Yeah, that should be here soon.
Monday rush on it. Yeah,
that's in the mail. Great story, just in terms of staying ready from being out of the rotation to now actually getting plays called for him. I mean, there's less than 4 minutes on the clock, and the Lakers go pick and roll with Lonnie Walker as the ball handler with LeBron James. Like, go figure, right? Yeah. And he just, stepped up to the moment in a big way. So that was absolutely incredible. And now the Lakers sit with a 3-1 series lead. Going back, Golden State is the heavy favorite already for Game 5 as expected. I think I want to say they're like a 5.5 or 6.5 point favorite in that one, but we'll see where the series goes from here. Obviously 3-1 series lead kind of feels like this is playing out like the Memphis series for the Lakers.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I think much like I said with the Knicks, I think Golden State will probably get the win in game 5, force a game 6, and I think the Lakers will take care of business at home. That was not what I picked. Obviously, I picked Warriors, I believe, in 7, if I remember
Yes, it
correctly,
did.
before the series. So, we'll see. Maybe it still gets there, but I think now the Lakers, they're in the driver's seat. And I thought, the Lonnie Walker stuff, for those who don't pay attention to the Lakers, nearly as closely as my buddy over there does, it's not that he was out of the rotation the last couple of games. He has not been playing regularly for a pretty long time.
Yeah.
Now, this goes back to the regular season. He stopped basically
And
almost.
he got hurt for part of it.
He did get hurt, but almost since the trade deadline, right? Like he just
Mhm.
hasn't gotten regular minutes that they, whether it was the emergence of Austin Reeves or playing a lot of kind of dual ball handler lineups where Schroeder plays with Russell and Russell moves off ball, or Malik Beasley, Troy Brown, like all those guys were in front of Lonnie Walker. And I think it's super cool to your point of this is the story of stay ready because you don't know when your number's going to be called. And I didn't see or did he read anything after about if anybody asked Darvin Ham why? Like why did you go to Lonnie Walker? I don't know if you can
Yeah,
share.
I can expand on that a bit.
Yeah, but it was, but he did, and it was the absolute right call. I mean, super cool story. And I tweeted this morning. This is one of the reasons we love sports, right? Because no one predicted. And of course, somebody's like, oh, my buddy, won money on DraftKings, betting on, and it's like, okay, so your one buddy like who's probably a degenerate gambler, like
Yeah.
took money down on Lonnie Walker, but it is what it is, right? Like you won money, on him, so that's great. But nobody rationally predicted Lonnie Walker was going to have the breakout game.
Yeah, he was. I mean, for him to score 15 quarter points, never would have predicted that. He was absolutely tremendous.
Yeah,
But
playing in the fourth quarter, I don't think anybody would have predicted.
no, I mean, they were just insane. But essentially, it came down to this in game 2. LeBron was talking about quite a bit after the game that the problem the Lakers had was that the Warriors tend to go on these runs, even if the Lakers are playing well defensively. The Warriors are just they're really good. They're going to go on runs, and the Lakers' offense was struggling to keep up. And one of the ways that they deduced that they could keep up, or in theory keep up, was to swap out Troy Brown, who can occasionally knock in a 3 for you, for Lonnie Walker, who has the ability to go on these hot streaks,
Sure.
and that his offense could wind up proving valuable when you're incapable of getting stops because the Warriors are just hitting. Lonnie has the ability to come back and respond and give you a little bit more offensive punch, so that even if you go through a stretch where you're not getting stops offensively, you can at least somewhat keep pace, and then hopefully over the long haul of a game you get enough stops. So that was the thought process behind it, is let's just have a little bit of extra offensive punch on the floor so that maybe when the Warriors go on their runs we can keep pace. And Lonnie, if he can at least not get absolutely torn up defensively, then we'll be okay there. And he actually afforded himself very, very well on the defensive end of the floor. So that's kind of the
Yeah, I
thought
think
process
he
they were looking at.
does a pretty good job if you can kind of simplify it for him of just chase, right? Like that's
Yes.
what we need, get through screens and chase. Like when you get it into, are we going to switch and we'll jump switch on the backside of the play and all these things, that's where I think he gets lost and gets caught up. And the Warriors, I like to say they get you in the blender, right? They get you cycling, and then all of a sudden somebody's wide open just because it's so hard to keep up with all the stuff. But if it is just chase your guy, then like, all right, I'm going to chase my guy. And then, of course, AD, is just, even when he's not making a direct defensive play, like he's just kind of there all the time. So on those like little slip cuts that the Warriors like to run, those flash cuts that they like to use, especially on the baseline and the sidelines, he's just there. And then even when they make some god awful turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
Just madness with that. And I just, I gotta say too, at the end of the game, like what Stephen Curry, what in the world are you doing? You had a timeout left, man. Like call timeout, like on that jump ball. Like you
Yeah.
got it. And then
Yes.
I
Yeah.
get
And then you
like
just kind of
no
threw the ball out of
timeouts.
bounds,
Yeah,
and
you gotta just kind of throw it because
yeah.
maybe your guy picks it up and throws in a miracle. But yeah, it was weird. And the jump ball was just a weird scramble situation anyway. And I don't know that the Lakers were necessarily going to foul. in that spot. But yeah,
That
and then
they haven't all season. I was hoping they
yeah,
would foul, but they haven't all season.
just as an aside, and this is not just because you said you were hoping they would foul. I kind of that's the one weird place where I am where I'm like, wouldn't mind seeing the NBA make a rule change there of like if you committed intentional foul, with a three
When you're
point
up
lead,
3. Yeah.
yeah, like then the opponent gets a free throw in the ball back.
Yeah.
Cause like I don't know, I don't like it. Like it's different
No.
if it's your foul to give.
It
That's
takes
different.
away some of the fun.
But yeah, I mean, we all want to see, right? Like at least let's see something crazy, right? Like and if you're dumb enough to foul Larry Johnson and when he's shooting a turner or not foul Larry Johnson as most fans say didn't happen, and it ends in a 4-point play, it ends in a 4-point play. And I just aged myself about the half the audience is like the grandmama guy.
I was gonna say grandmama, but yeah, like probably the bulk of our listeners don't know
They
what that
probably don't
was.
even know what that is either.
No.
Yeah, that's even older.
Yep.
So yeah, but yeah, man, good on the Lakers. Like it's it is it's unbelievable. So my question for you is say this ends in 5 or 6, right? They get it over within the next couple of games. Are you at all worried against Denver or Phoenix that they're just gonna run out of gas? Like that they just
Sure.
at some point I think that's my only worry is are they gonna like is the cumulative add up? That's why I think it benefits them to get this series over as quick as they can, right? That always benefits you. But I think when your two guys are like a combined, like 73 years old or whatever, it's like, you gotta just get the series over, right? And just get off your feet for a few days and then get back at it. Like that's my one worry with the Lakers. Like, they're gonna be able to keep bringing it like this for another 2 rounds.
Yeah, exactly. We and that's absolutely a concern. And essentially the Lakers have been holding down the turbo button since the trade deadline.
Yeah,
And that's obvious. It's definitely a concern. We've seen games where they haven't had a lot of
sure.
even playoff games where they haven't had a lot of energy. Go back to the Memphis series, look at game
Yep.
2, no jaw, and the Lakers just kind of went meh, and then game 5 as well. And we'll see what happens here in game 5 of this series. But yeah,
Even the other
it's definitely a concern.
in this one, right? Like they got destroyed. But I
Game
think
2,
what
yep.
Darvin Ham has a pretty good read on with his team is, or we don't have it. And I am pulling the plug early. And I don't care. I don't care if we lose by 70. It doesn't matter. A loss is a loss. Nobody cares about your point differential in the playoffs. Like none of
Mhm.
that stuff matters. So yeah, I think he does have a pretty good feel. That's probably a lot of the former player in him too, where it's
Yeah.
just like, all right, we don't have it tonight. Like I'm calling it like done and just call it early rather than sometimes these teams you invest all this energy in these comebacks when you get down big, and occasionally you pull off a miracle, but more often than not, it feels like it's right. Everybody calls it the fake comeback, right?
Yes.
You
Yep.
cut it to like 8, and then it's like, but it was never really in danger. And then all of a sudden you look up and it's like, oh, cool, we played everybody 45 minutes, and and we still lost. Like I think it's sometimes better to just, especially in the playoffs when it's every other day, call it early and be done.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Absolutely. All right, let's get on to the all defensive teams,
yeah.
which were announced today. The all defensive voting finished up like this. You had the first team, Jaren Jackson Jr., Drew Holiday, Brooke Lopez, Evan Mobley, and Alex Caruso. And then the second team, Derek White, Draymond Green, OG Anunoby, Dylan Brooks, Bam Adebayo. Most of the conversation around social media that I've seen have been terms. There's snubs for everything, right? Every time there's any kind of all-star or whatever, there's snubs, right? But it's Anthony Davis. I've seen some Jalen McDaniels out there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Jaden McDaniels.
Sorry, Jaden McDaniels.
Yep.
As
Mikal Bridges is the other one.
yes, yeah, as the
Right.
other snub. So
Yeah.
what do you think about how this ultimately finished up?
Yeah, I I don't like necessarily have a problem with the way the teams were named. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. It's right, the new rules are not in place, right, with the whole 65 games played thing. So people were still voting the way they've always voted, with whatever criteria they wanted to use. So
Mhm.
but the reality is the guy also won defensive player of the year, so of course he was
Oh,
going to make
right.
the all defense first team. I think I really don't have an issue with any of the guys who were necessarily picked. I Mikal Bridges is a little weird, right? And it's a little odd that Marcus Smart and Mikal Bridges, the 1-2 in last year's Defensive Player of the Year voting, neither of them even made it. I'm not critical of Smart. I think he dropped off considerably. I was a little surprised he was the highest guard vote getter that didn't make it. I didn't even think he was quite at that level this season. So that kind of is what it is. I thought, there was times where he was Boston's maybe fourth or fifth best defensive player overall. The Anthony Davis stuff, I get it. I also get if people like didn't play enough, but
Yeah.
but did Jackson play? Like that becomes a whole debate there. But overall, I think it's okay. I guess one of my big takeaways that was funny was all this, and I know a lot of it's just Twitter jokes and online jokes, but this is why Dylan Brooks is going to have a job next year and get paid decently because he's this level of defensive player.
Sure.
Even if you think he shouldn't have been on the team, it's not like it's insane that he made it. My go-to is for anybody who's a baseball fan. This is not when Rafael Palmeiro won a Gold Glove and he played like 12 games at first base the whole season.
Right.
Like this is not that. Like Dylan Brooks is a very good defensive player. And for everybody screaming and yelling of, this guy should have made it over him, this guy should have made it over him. He was voted in as a guard. So that's the other
That's part of it
too.
Yes.
It's that the positions do matter on the all defense team. So
and I think this is part of the problem too with releasing these in the middle of the playoffs, which here we are. It's the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be looking through it through the lens of through the first two rounds, Anthony Davis has arguably been the best defensive player in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And then he doesn't appear on the first or second team. And it's like, what do you mean? When we've been watching the last month of him being this just dominant defensive player. And so that obviously is going to impact the conversation as well, because we've seen all this basketball since then, whereas it's hard to go back and think about, oh yeah, what did this look like in the regular season? That's part of it as well. When you look at kind of the collective outrage or whatever that you see from people getting snubbed, it's playoff performances get mixed into the conversation.
I was very glad to see Derek White get the honor of making it because he's had an outstanding defensive season. He led the league in blocks from a non front court player. Like he played in all 82 games too, which that still matters, right? That does still matter, that if you're there every single night, like that has some bearing, especially if you're good more often than not. So I was very excited to see him get the love, and I think Alex Caruso getting the first team spot was good recognition of all the things he does I think he started more than he didn't this year, but he's still a kind of only a semi-starter, but it makes a massive impact on the defensive end of the floor when he comes in. It's funny that I still think it's funny because I saw somebody reshared the Austin Reeves article I wrote, and they're like, this guy thinks Austin Reeves is good. He's just another Caruso, and it's like,
oh my gosh,
they're
not the same player at all.
Yeah, they're so different as players. Like it's not. I mean, that is. They're both white guards.
They're both undrafted white guys. That's
like,
about as deep as the similarities go.
Yeah. It's it's funny because I made the comment today, and somebody's like, "Oh my god, I've never even thought about that." I did a radio spot in Dallas, and I was like, "Yeah, I always think of Luka as the European white right-handed version of James Harden. Like he's not all that different from what James Harden does as far as being so heliocentric." And the guy was like, "Man, you don't get that kind of comp very often." I was like, "Yeah, because we make lazy comps. That's why, right?" And I'm guilty of it too.
Sure.
But yeah, it was just very weird that somebody threw that in there of like Reeves still isn't good, and it's like, all right, well, it's clear you haven't been watching, and that's fine. But
watch the games. Watch the games.
Yeah. No real major issues. Nothing jumped out at me here that's like egregiously off base, I guess.
All right. Last thing that we got here, Nikola Jokic. Just to kind of put a bow on this, we talked about it on yesterday's show, but no suspension. We got that bit into yesterday's show. He was fined $25,000, which
literally came out like as we stopped
we finished the show. But
because that's how it goes.
It's a slap on the wrist. The NBA just had to do something. So $25,000 fine for Jokic, and we move on. And I think it's the correct, as we talked about yesterday, it's correct to not have a suspension or anything. And I can't wait to see what game 5 is going to look like in that series. It's going to be
Yeah,
fantastic.
should be a lot of fun. We're back in Denver now tonight as we record this.
Did we not talk about that series?
Oh, we didn't. We skipped over
We
that
skipped.
one.
How did that
because we went
happen?
so long on all the other ones. Yeah, man, it's just been fun, right? Both teams took care of business at home. I think that's the big thing. And this one is playing out very typically non-stars / role players playing better at home, right?
Andrew Shamet.
Yep, the Suns, non-stars stepped up, and that. I mean, Devin Booker, talk about he's gone to a whole different level. Not that Devin Booker isn't good and hasn't always been good, but he is, especially defensively. Like I don't know that I knew he quite had this in him. And now some Suns fan is going to yell at me and say he's always been this, and that's not true. There was a major criticism, but man, he is locked in on that end of the floor. And I'm not going to go as far to say they're better without Chris Paul. I just think it's Chris Paul is at this point in his career, I'd like to see him cede some of the playmaking duties a little bit more. And I wonder if when he comes back, if they do a little bit more of that. Because I also would like Chris Paul off ball a heck of a lot more than I like campaign off ball, spotting up for shots and those kind of things. But man, fun series. In Denver, the one thing that worries me is they're still getting a lot of what they want offensively. So I don't that part concerns me a little bit if I'm Phoenix. You have to, this is truly whoever scores more points. I know it's always that way, but it's a high scoring shootout kind of series, and it's been a lot of fun. It's kind of fun that it comes after Celtics Sixers, which has been a lot of rock fights so far. So it's like, all right, this one's a little fun to come, on the backside. It's weird that 3 of the 4 series have kind of been messy defensive series.
That's playoff basketball, man.
That's it, man. Throwing it back. Knicks Heat.
Right.
We're going all the way back to the 90s.
The Nuggets a 6-point favorite tonight over the Suns. So we'll see how that one plays out. But I mean, hey, I didn't think this series was going to wind up knotted at 2. I thought Denver was going to take 1 in Phoenix. It was going to be 3-1. So we'll see. Best of 3 series now between the Suns and the Nuggets. And you just never know. When you've got KD, when you got Devin Booker on the floor, Suns can always make a run here. So should be an exciting one. But I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Again, make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget as well to follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Until next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.